Hello, welcome back. For most of the visualization of the data that we analyze from WhatsApp chats, we will be using ggplot library. Now, ggplot is a huge library. It has got many options and it will take a huge amount of time to actually understand and master ggplot. So we will look at the very essential parts that we will require for our visualization of the WhatsApp chat data so that you understand the code that we are writing for visualization of the WhatsApp chat data. Now the library ggplot has been updated and it's now called ggplot2. So the library that you need to import is ggplot2 and not ggplot. Also, the ggplot is written in small letters. It is for the illustration only I have put it in capitals, but actually the library name is ggplot2, all in small letters. Now we will go through the essential parts of ggplot2 in this particular video, and then we will see how to utilize it further. The libraries that we will use are as follows. We will use the library ggplot2. Gg actually stands for grammar of graphs. So it is actually supposed to be covering everything that a graph requires. So we will be using the library ggplot2. This basically creates the graphs, and then we can beautify the graphs by using the library ggthemes. Ggthemes library goes along with ggplot2. So we will look at ggthemes, what all we can do with it. Then we will use a library called Viridis. Now this is a separate library. From Viridis, what we do is that we basically take the color palettes. Now there can be other color palettes also, like this R Color Brewer 3, etc. You can choose about the color palette. However, what is important is that the color palette should give you sufficient number of colors what is required for the visualization. In our case, we will be visualizing data over 12 months. So we will require a color palette which actually gives 12 distinct colors. So Viridis is one such library which does that. So we will use that. So the bottom line is that we will use ggplot2 for creating the graphs, ggthemes to beautify the graphs and the various aspects of the graphs, and Viridis we will use for the color palettes. From the data that we have, we will try to create the graph as it is shown here. Now, if we know that in any graph, we require minimum one variable which will produce the data on the x-axis, and we require one variable which will produce the data on the y-axis. Now, in our case, you can see that the variable on the x-axis is the dates, the date on which or the day on which the messages were exchanged, and the variable on the y-axis is the number of messages that were exchanged on a particular day. So we have the x and y axis. Then there is a third dimension here where we have said that the month is colored by different colors. So these are the data points which relate to the month of February. These are the data points which relate to month of March. So we can have data for all the months of the year also. So we can have different color bars for different months, and we can see how to do that using ggplot. So essentially we're looking at the day in this graph as the x-axis, number of messages on the y-axis, and the month of the day as the third variable which will paint the bars in different colors. Now we have to understand what are the different parts of the graph. Like the graph will have a header, a subheader, and then it will have the x-axis, y-axis, etc. Let's look at the different parts and we'll try to understand that. And we will understand what are the different variables that we can control and how. So what do you call, are there certain aspects which we can control, are there certain aspects which we cannot control? We will see that. And we will try to understand what are the functions and their applications required for generating the graphs. So let's dive into this and look at the different aspects. So here I have planted for you what are the different parts of the graph and what are the different parameters which we can vary for changing the different aspects of the parameters. So now on the top you can see that this is the heading of the graph. So this is heading is known as the title. So this can be accessed with a variable plot.title. So if we change the parameters for plot.title, we can vary the way the header will look like. The graph provides a subheader. This is known as a subtitle. So if we change the variable plot.subtitle, then we can vary the aspects of the subtitle. Now you can see that we have these text on the y-axis, which basically shows the number of messages in our case. It can be anything for other graphs. So these can be varied by using the variable axis.text.y. So this is the parameter in GG themes, which if we vary, then we can vary the way the text on the y-axis will appear. Similarly, we have the variables on the y-axis, which basically are showing the days of the month. So this can be varied by changing the parameter axis.text.x. So we can do it here. Now, the axis also will have a title. Now, both the titles or the x-axis and the y-axis can be varied by changing the parameter axis.title. So if you change this particular parameter, we can vary the way the axis titles can be varied. Then we have the legends. The legends will have a title. Now, the titles of the legends can be varied by changing the parameter legend.title, and the way the legends are displayed, these are the legends. The way they are displayed, they can be changed by changing the parameter legend.key, and the text along with the legend can be changed by changing the parameter legend.text. Now it must be noted that any of the parameters that we have, we can either display it or we cannot display it. Now if you do not want to display a particular parameter, we can set it to a function called element_blank. So if you say element_blank, that particular parameter will disappear. So I will show that to you when we are seeing it practically on Rstudio, how we can do that as well. Now let's study the code that we will require to generate the graph that we just discussed. So we will go through each line of the code and try to see whether we can understand it or not. Now we start with, we have all our data in the data frame called v_chat. So we have our data in v_chat. Using the dplyr library, I pipe it to the next command. And in the next command, what I'm doing is I'm using again dplyr library to group the data according to the month of the message. So what I'm doing is that I'm grouping the messages by month and then counting the number of messages for every day. So what I will have is that I will have the number of messages per day, and I will also know what is the month that day belongs to. We have no graphing so far. We have only created the data that we will use for creating the graph. So what we essentially have is the different dates in our data and the number of messages for every day and which month that day belongs to. After we have got the data, we will pipe it to ggplot. So you can see that I'm using the dplyr library's pipe command, and we will pipe it to ggplot. ggplot, first of all, what I set up is that what I will have on the x-axis and what I will have on the y-axis, that is the essential thing. So like we discussed, we will have the message date on the x-axis and we will have the number of messages on the y-axis, and we will fill it with the message month so that every month's data appears in a different color. So this is what we have set up the ggplot to be. Then we are telling ggplot that we want to create a bar chart. So we have set geom bar and we have given the parameter stat is equal to identity. This basically produces a bar chart. So we will see that ggplot has got many different options, like we can create tiles for heat maps, or we can create pie charts, etc. So everything can be done using ggplot. Essentially, there are lots and lots of options in ggplot. So here we are basically creating a bar chart. So we use geom bar. Another important thing to notice is that ggplot works in layers. So I gave that the aspects are x, y, are so and so. Then I say plus. So I add on to this as ggplot by giving the next layer. In the next layer, I have said that produce a bar chart. And then again I put a plus, and then I say that fill the bars. So I have given the fill as the message month. So what should be the color? That color will be determined by this Viridis color palette that we have utilized, and we have said that use Viridis and fill it so that the different months have got different colors. So I have said that discrete is equal to true because each month will be a discrete value. There is no continuous value here. Okay, after we have done that, then we say that the label on the x-axis should be date and the label on the y-axis should be number of messages. So this we have done that, and the fill label should be month. Now this fill label will appear in the legends. Then we have given the next layer of ggplot command by adding a plus there. So I have said that the title of the graph will be messages per day and the subtitle will be frequency of messages per day grouped by month. Notice here I used a \n. \n basically is a new line character. So this whole text will be broken into two lines, and the first line will contain frequency of messages per day and the next line will contain group by month. Then I have started using the theme. So first of all, I've told ggplot that I'm going to use a theme minimal. There are many themes, you can study that, what are the different themes available, and you can utilize that. Then I have gone on to gg themes. Theme function comes from gg themes library, where I have defined what should be my theme. The first thing I have told you is that the legend title, I am first manipulating the legend title. The legend title should be in, I am saying that it should be in blue color, its size should be 9, and it should be bold. Now this whole thing I can give it using the function called element text. This is a very important function, so you can utilize it lots. So we can give it by saying element text, and it basically takes three parameters: color, size, and font. Then we say that the element text, the legend text, should be in red color and its size should be 7. We have done that. Next we use the parameter legend.position, and I said that the positioning of the legend should be in the bottom. The legend keys, we notice that the way the legends are displayed, we can vary the size of that, and I say that the legend key size should be in units of 0.3 centimeters. So then on the x-axis will be this way and the y-axis will be this way. The size basically means the height and the width. Then I have also manipulated the way the text on the x-axis should appear and the text on the y-axis should appear. Also I have manipulated the axis title. Everywhere I have used element text, I am basically varying the text size. I could have varied other parameters of color and font also, but I have chosen not to do that. So if I did not want to use element underscore text, if I wanted to leave something blank, I could have said element underscore blank. So I could have done that, element underscore blank. If I said element underscore blank, then that particular element would not be displayed on the particular aspect of the graph. Then I have set the size for the plot title and the size for the plot subtitle. So now we have gone through the command what we will utilize for creating the plot. Now let's head to Rstudio and see this in action. And so here we are in Rstudio. First thing that we will do is we will upload our data. We have seen that in the previous video already. So I will just upload the data. There we have it. Now after having uploaded the data, I will do the massaging like we have discussed already. So I will complete this part. So let's just run this. So there we have the data, and you have seen this, that we have got the data and we have got these additional columns: message week, day, message week number, message date, month, etc. So now we have what we require for trying our ggplot. So now next we will load the data, load the libraries like we have just discussed in the presentation. So I will load the three libraries: ggplot, ggthemes, and Viridis. Once I've done that, now let's start making our graph. So we have our data frame v underscore chats. Now first what I have told you is that we will group the data by the month and we will take the count by the date. So let's just run this part and see what we get. So when we do that, you notice that we have got the data for every day of the month and the count of how many messages were exchanged on a particular day, and these are all grouped by the month. So we have the message month, message date, and the number of messages on a particular day. So we have our data. So now what we do is that we plot the message date on the x-axis, the number of messages, that is n here, on the y-axis, and we color them in a different color for every month. That is, message month is the fill. So message month is here. So this will be our fill parameter. So let us see, when we run this much, what do we get? We should get nothing. So you notice that we get a blank chart. because the ggplot does not know what kind of graph we want to create. Next, we tell ggplot that I want to make a bar chart. So now I say I add the layer geom bar, and now let's see what we get. So there you notice that I have got my bar chart, and I have got my dates on the x-axis, and I have got my numbers on the y-axis, and it tells me the x-axis is message date and the y-axis is number. That is, as the variables in the data set that we have provided, it takes the same names. Here coloring will not matter too much because I have only data for 2 months, but if I have data for all the 12 months, then you would have noticed that coloring would have mattered. So anyway, I have added the fill coloring from Viridis, and I get the same output. I also see the legends, that is message month is February and March. Next, I add the layer for giving the labels. So I give the x-axis label and the y-axis label and the fill label. So once I do that, my graph changes. You notice that the y-axis label is the number of messages, x-axis label is date, and the legend is month. So I have changed the labels according to my liking. Next, I also add the heading, that is the title for the graph. I add another layer, GG title. When I do that, I get my title, that is, like I have said, messages per day, and the subtitle is frequency of messages per day grouped by month. So I have done this much. Now I tell that I want the legend title to be blank and the position to be at the bottom. That is, the legend title, that is this one, should be blank, the month should not appear, and this should come at the bottom. So when I'm adding this theme, let's see what happens to our graph. So I do this, and you notice that my legends have come on the bottom now because I've said legend position is equal to bottom. I have given this parameter, and I have said that the legend title is blank, so there is no legend title. I only get the legends. And this is how my graph looks like right now. Now let us apply all the different parameters that we have discussed. So I tell that the legend title should be available, and it should be blue in color, and size should be 9, and the font should be bold, and the legend text should be in red color. Now it's in black color. I want the legend text to be in red color, and its size should be slightly smaller at 7. The position I do not change, let it be at the bottom. And the legend key, the size and the width, I make it smaller. This is looking a bit too big, so I make it a little bit smaller, make it 0.3 centimeter. And I change the size of the axis text, that is the date, I change the size to 7. The number of messages, I change the size to 7. And the axis title, I will change the size. So I add all these parameters and I create my graph once again. So let's do that and see what happens. So I've highlighted my command and I run this. So there we have our graph according to the parameters what we have set. So you can change all the parameters according to your liking, and you can make the graph the way you want it. So ggplot has a lot of facilities, and you can try out all the different facilities and create graphs according to your liking.